thank you for joining us today, Raymond.
I thank you for the invite. It was I'm very grateful to be here.
Yeah, this is overdue.
Yeah, it is overdue. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you're a very good speaker, and it's and you have. I was telling Schmarks, he's like, "Is today's guest going to be good?" And, some episodes are better than other episodes, and I'm like, "Oh, you'll see. He's got a presence about him." So I'm looking forward to today's podcast. So, we got a couple things that I'd want to talk about. I definitely want to talk about real estate. So there's a couple of real estate podcasts. You work in real estate. You're very successful at it. I don't know as much as you do. I can hang in there though. I like to listen to podcasts. I like to inform myself, especially about Canadian real estate. It's a lot different than American real estate. Yeah. A couple of other questions I want to get into, but let's just start with this. So and I'm not going to ask like a typical question, where do you think real estate's going and all that kind of stuff. Right now, there's a really big issue in Canada. This is something that we've covered on numerous occasions, the supply. Yep. And there's a big issue with regards to zoning laws, getting permits, and basically to incentivize investors to build. So a perfect example would be pre-sales. So if you want to attack, for example, a capital gains increase. Yeah. If you want to attack investors, whether it be foreign or local investors, and you want to attack their profits, well, people are just going to put their money in other places. They're just not going to come to real estate. So there's a lot of factors that are coming into play right now. We have record high immigration, so that basically puts further constraints or further pressure on supply. It's a mess right now. It's a fucking mess. Do you see us getting out of this mess in the near future in Canada with regards to the cost of real estate?
There's two messes. There's a cost of real estate and there's the shortage of real estate, right? The cost of real estate, the only way I see it getting out of a mess is if there's additional measures put in place by the government. I don't see us getting out of the mess where people are actually banking on the fact that a lot of these homes are going to be worth less and they're going to be able to pounce on them. It's impossible. The only time in my lifetime, and my father has mentioned this to me in his lifetime, that he's seen real estate go backwards is in the early 90s when we had a referendum. And that's here in Quebec. Quebec, we always have stable growth, whereas Vancouver and Toronto, you have peaks and valleys. So you have a crazy spike, you have a valley, and then that's when people buy, and then it goes back up. So Toronto right now is hurting big time.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's hurting big time. And people are coming back to Montreal. I know a lot of people that call me all the time and say, we're moving back to Montreal. Can you find us a house? We just sold our house in Brampton, Mississauga, Oakville, whatever.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't think we're going to be out of this mess. I think what's going to have to happen is my whole belief on this subject has been very simple. I think we're going to eventually be like Europe. I think we're going to be like London, where the majority of the properties are owned by people in the upper 3 to 5%, whether it's income or wealth or whatever. And then the majority of people that are renting are going to be renting for long terms. So if you don't have property in your family, your kids are probably going to have a very hard time finding property.
Do you think this is good for society?
No, it's not, but I think there's cycles in society. And I think what happens with society is that, look, I'll give you an example. When my father was an immigrant in Montreal in the 60s and the 70s, and there was at that time, there was a lot of Greek and Italian immigrants as well. Well, the Italians started coming here in the 50s. They were able to buy duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes for like pennies on the dollar compared to what they're worth now. In some cases with zero down. That was a cycle then. Then there was the cycle of homes and single family homes and moving out to the suburbs. Now we've been seeing a cycle of condos and high rises, which was very new to Montreal. I think the future is renting. That's why you're seeing a lot of buildings like right around the corner from here on Sources. I could name you like 3 or 4 major projects going up. They're all going to be rentals. They're not going to be condos for sale. And do I like that? Absolutely not, because my bread and butter and my business is built on selling property, not renting it. But you're going to have to pivot. And the future, I see generations renting rather than buying. Also for the lifestyle. I mean,
it is more flexible.
It's way more flexible, and I see a lot of people below the age of 30 right now that are more susceptible to renting. They're more interested in renting than they are buying.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example myself. So I owned a condo in Point St. Charles.
Yeah.
I sold the condo. I live just around the corner in Kirkland.
Yeah.
I have a house. I pay $3,000 a month for rent. The house would go for about $1 million.
Yeah.
And so even with the 20% down payment, so number one, my cash is stuck in the house.
100%.
It's not as liquid as a stock market portfolio, for example. If I want to factor in the property tax, I need to factor in the maintenance, I need to factor in the insurance, I need to factor paying off or giving a percentage to the real estate agent if I sell. All these numbers, the cost for the first year at least came out to, I think it was $6,300 per month.
Yeah.
And I'm paying $3,000 a month, and I don't have $200,000 tied up.
Yeah.
So there's more, and like these, I don't know, just like the numbers don't make sense anymore. I kind of agree with you. I think that like the only way to go is renting, and people don't really have a choice. There is an argument to make that renting is better than owning at this point in time. In the 1950s and 1960s, it obviously made sense for people, like you said, to buy up these properties for pennies on the dollar. And like that's how a lot of immigrant families. So like I know that Indian people, the Greeks, the Italians, like it's actually funny where if you're Greek and Italian, you either own a restaurant and then you own the restaurant, you buy the building, you buy a bunch of other real estate.
100%.
Like there's a lot of families that do this who are creating generational wealth.
Yes.
But like right now, so here's a question for you that just popped into my head. Would you recommend today, because I always see your LinkedIn content, fantastic content, by the way.
I appreciate it.
Would you recommend someone to be going after, let's say I just started a family, I want to build generational wealth, or I want to build wealth in general. Would you recommend them going into real estate at this point in time based on how expensive real estate is in Canada, and based on the fact that you mentioned earlier, you don't see real estate getting more affordable in Canada?
That's a good question. So my question when someone asks me if they should invest in real estate, my question is always, what's your end game? Are you buying this property because you want to create generational wealth and you want property for your kids? Or are you buying this property because you want to make $100,000 on a 5-year mortgage and quickly turn it around and flip that money and do something else with it? If it's answer number one, I tell them buy. Because the best time to buy real estate, and if you're going to hold it, is literally today. Like just go out and buy and hold. If you're looking to make a quick turnaround, now's not the time. The time to buy right now would be probably looking for a deal. So look for value. And if you're looking for a house to live in for yourself, now's an excellent time to buy, considering we are filming right now and we've just seen our third consecutive decrease in interest rates. I think that timing the market is never a good idea, whether it's the financial markets or the real estate market.
Impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
But I think we are in a perfect storm right now, and I think whoever buys within the next 3 to 6 months is going to thank themselves next summer.
Are we talking in Quebec, or are we talking Canada? I know like it's kind of like Canada's split into, like you said, the GTA is a much different market compared to here in Quebec. So you're speaking about Quebec.
I'm speaking about Quebec, yeah. In fact, a lot of people will call me. They'll be like, "Hey, Raymond, I'll go to Toronto. My sister lives in Toronto.
Yeah.
So I'll go there and I'll spend the week there and I'll meet, some of their friends, and they'll be like, so what do you think about the market? How's the market?" And I'll tell them I can only speak on behalf of Montreal. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Toronto. Do I know the condo market in Toronto? Yes, because I work with a lot of the pre-sales developers that sell here that also sell there. So I understand that market. But when someone says to me, "Look, man, what do you think? Like, I have a really nice house in Mississauga. It's $2 million. You think it's a good time for me to sell and cash out?" I'm like, I'm not going to mislead you, man. I don't want to be everything to everyone, So I'm not going to sit there and be like, yeah, exactly. You should sell right now. And then all of a sudden, the guy could have made another $200,000 by waiting 3 more years. The Vancouver and the Toronto market fluctuates so much. I'll give you an example. In the suburbs of BC, a city called Surrey, BC, and that's where the majority of the population is Sikh, like me. In that suburb, you cannot find an acre of land for less than $2 million.
That's insane.
Yeah. The same acre of land was like $400,000 like 12 years ago. So the market is, so that means if you had $400,000 in a city like that, you know what I would say to you, Curtis? Do me a favor. Take your $400K, don't buy a house in Kirkland, invest it in a piece of land, go rent, and then if you see the market going in that direction, sell it, and you just made $1.6 million. Like, when's the last time you saw someone buy a house in the suburbs in Montreal for $400K and they flipped it for $200,000? Or sorry, $2 million.
It's been a long time.
Maybe our parents. And what is that?
Yeah.
30, 35, 40 years? You know, our parents bought these houses right behind us in the West Island and DDO and Kirkland for $150.
Yeah.
But, 150.
Like the house that I grew up in, it's a detached house. It'd probably be about $1 million, maybe more. I grew up in Point Claire. My dad bought it for $150,000 in 1986 or 87. And so, it's.
So my father bought a house that we lived in not long. We lived in it for like 7 or 8 years. It was 2 blocks from here near Sunnybrook, and our temple is right around the corner from here. But it was 2 blocks away. He bought it for $140,000. He went and got $5,000 cash from the CIBC on sources, gave her that as a deposit. And literally did everything with his representation, which was his broker, but she was kind of like trying to sell on her own. So like they brokered the deal, and that house today is probably worth like $850, and it still needs renovations. So it's like if my father had held that property, plus maybe bought another one, now all of a sudden that's when you're talking about generational wealth.
Yes.
And
would you say, so here's like another question. Would you say Canadian real estate today, and I know there's 2 sides to this, would you say we're in a situation where would you say Canadian real estate is more of a speculative asset, or would you say it's an asset that is actually investable? And because like everything you're saying right now, and I know there's ways you can do it. So basically, like if you're a real estate investor, you can buy stuff. But like the issue, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but the issue that when I'm speaking to people, that a lot of real estate brokers are having is the fact that there's a lot of properties that don't cash flow.
That's right.
So if it doesn't cash flow, or it's negatively cash flowing, which means it's costing, if this is for the viewers, I know you know what this means, but it's basically, if there's some people that own a pre-sale condo, for example, they don't want to sell it, and it's a negative cash flow of $1,000 a month. Yeah. This is not uncommon for what's going on right now.
It's very common.
And so like, do people understand that they're essentially buying a speculative asset for situations like that? Like if you buy a 6-plex and the cash flow is positive right away, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for, a lot of people think that, they're just taught in Canada, like real estate doesn't go down, which obviously it does.
Yeah.
So just back to my question, would you consider it more of a speculative asset, or would you consider it more of like an actual investable asset that should be cash flowing positive? I don't know if I explained that properly.
No, that's actually an excellent question. So there's 2 factors to it. Number one, there's 2 parts where I think it's speculative in new construction.
Yes.
Because you're buying into a new project, a vision of a developer, and in sometimes
it's a futures contract, essentially.
It's a futures contract, and you're sometimes buying in areas that are not developed yet. Example, the first house I ever bought was in Vaudreuil. I bought it for $240,000. I bought it in an area where I had to leave the area just to get gas or get Tim Hortons. Like I had to leave the area. But lo and behold, 2 years later, there's a Tim Hortons, there's a Walmart, there's a Renault Depot, there's a McDonald's, a Subway, there's multiple gas stations, there's new highways, new exits. So that is speculative, because if those things don't happen quick enough, the property values don't go up. Now a hospital's coming there. Whereas there's areas where you can invest in today. Like for example, if I told you, go to the Sudwest, go to Point St. Charles, go to St. Henry, go to those areas and buy yourself a really nice triplex, live in one of the units and rent out the other 2, and make it nice. A lot of them already have character, but modernize the inside of them. That is a solid investment because of the area you're in. You're probably gonna get higher rents. You're gonna get a different demographic of clientele, whether it's a tenant or not, or someone wanting to buy it from you. Now, the second part to this is it depends on interest rates. So a lot of my new construction clients that purchased with me, they purchased 2, 3, 4 years ago when rates were like 2.5%. Then rates went really low, and then they started going back up. But it's luck of the draw. They're all closing now, because to build these towers and these projects sometimes takes 3, 4, 5 years. So when you're buying in 2021 and then closing in 2024, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to close. When I bought it was 2.5%. Now I'm getting approved at 5 3/4.
And a lot of people can't afford it.
And the rents didn't go up as much. So that's why you see a lot of people on Facebook and the media and stuff saying this is unacceptable. These rents are getting out of control. We cannot afford. That comes down to affordability too.
Yeah.
If I own this building that we're sitting in, and my cost to manage this building every month is, say, $50,000, and I have 5 units, you better believe I'm going to try to rent each unit for $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
So that's why interest rates are affecting the rental market. And like they say, whenever something happens in the economy, like it always flows downwards. Mm-hmm. For example, if you're going to the drive-thru at Tim Hortons and the person serving you at Tim Hortons is now getting paid $15, $16, $17 an hour because that's the new minimum wage.
And your pass those costs to you.
You better believe your medium double is not costing $2 anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. A coffee, people used to complain about Starbucks, but now the coffees at Tim Hortons are costing you $3, $4, $5.
Yeah.
Just for a regular coffee.
Yeah.
In that case, I'd rather go to Starbucks.
Yeah. I bought a coffee the other day at Starbucks. I couldn't believe this. This is without a tip. It's $10.
100%.
It was insane.
Whenever I go to the drive-thru at Starbucks and I'm alone in my car, it's minimum $7 or $8. Yeah, and then I'm thinking to myself, okay, like I really love my Nespresso machine at home,
Yeah, same.
And you go to Fairview, you buy the pods, or you can have them delivered.
I do the exact same thing.
You have them delivered to your front door.
And it's delicious. Is it still $1? People are like, oh, it's really expensive. Yes, it's expensive compared to just buying like a big bag of coffee and grinding it yourself. But the coffee itself is delicious. It's like promotion for an espresso right now.
Of course, yeah.
And it's like $1 or $1.10 a pod, I think.
It's
something.
$1.10 a pod, exactly. Yeah. They break it down even on the website.
Yeah.
Very user friendly.
Yeah.
And Nespresso has almost become like the Apple of coffee.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And I think everyone's trying to Applify their businesses.
Just make like a beautiful product and stuff.
Look at Tesla. There's no salespeople. You walk in, they're all consultants.
Yeah.
And they're like, look, we're not here to sell you the car. We're here to teach you about the experience and how it works. And they're all wearing polo shirts instead of suits.
It's Tesla's like a whole other. They have a Tesla like just around the corner there.
Yeah.
Do you have a Tesla?
No, I don't, but my wife does.
Does she like it?
She loves it. I am not sold on electric cars yet.
I'm not either.
Yeah, I think it's going to take me at least after this car. It's going to take me one more car before I jump to electric. I just don't believe in having 2 electric cars at home either, because power outages. Mm-hmm. Going on road trips.
It's logistics and stuff.
It's logistics. Yeah, we do a lot of road trips. We go to New York a lot. We go to Toronto a lot. So it's, I'm like, do I really want to deal with that? I'm a very anxious person.
Okay.
So like, do I want to deal with that anxiety? Like, oh my God, I need to find a charging station.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier to find a gas station.
Oh yeah.
Would you say, do you think the federal government, do you think they're actually going to follow through with what they say by 2035 and 100% of the cars are actually going to be electric in Canada?
Not a chance.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Why did they say stuff like this?
I think, I hate to say this. I mean, I don't like talking about politics too much, but I'll talk about it.
Sure.
I think
we don't have to take sides. We can just talk about it objectively.
Well, I think Trudeau likes saying things to appease people.
I would definitely agree with
you. Yeah, I
there.
think he's a people pleaser. And I'm going to tell you something. My family and myself, we've bled white and red like our whole life. My dad used to instill into our mind when we were younger, you vote Liberal, you don't vote for anyone else. We are liberals, we are liberals, we are liberals. The older
why do you think he did that?
I'll tell you why he did that. Very simple. My father, my grandfather, my family as a whole, whether it's my family now that lives in Vancouver, I have a lot of family in Toronto or here in Montreal, everyone is here because of Trudeau's father.
Okay.
It's Trudeau's father that opened up immigration to my parents and that demographic back then in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
His son is trying to do the same thing, but unfortunately his son's not a politician.
No.
He's not a politician.
No.
And I've met his son on several occasions. He was actually at someone that, I'm family friends with. He was at the wedding. This was when he was just a minister. He was not the prime minister about 10 years ago. I've met him through, people I do business with. He's usually at their fundraisers and their functions because they're also very, well invested in the Liberal Party. He's a really nice guy, but he's not a politician. And I think that it's starting to show now. And I think Jagmeet Singh caught on last week.
Yeah.
Last night, I just heard this morning that the riding in LaSalle, the Liberal Party lost.
They lost again?
They lost it to the Bloc Québécois. Villemard, LaSalle, and the other riding.
Lost it to the Bloc.
Yeah, so the Bloc.
And I think the Bloc would be like the equivalent of like it's like a Quebec's nationalist party. Because it's like Quebec, no matter what. I mean, even if you think about it, Quebec will never be conservative. It just won't. Like even with Brian Mulroney, a guy who's from Quebec, who's perfectly bilingual, spoke French perfectly. Yeah. He couldn't even win Quebec back in the 80s. So I don't think Quebec will ever vote conservative. But
no, they won't vote conservative. But I mean, I also know that the Liberals won't win. the next
No,
election.
they're not going to win.
Yeah,
the
they're
next
done.
election.
And I think he knows. And it's funny because like in every, whether it's celebrities, athletes, or you own your own business or whatever, everyone retires when they're on the top.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Politicians are the only ones, when they retire, their name has been dragged through mud. When they start off, it's like, oh, this is the golden boy.
Yeah.
But when they retire or their term is up or they say I'm done with
They always
politics,
stay too long.
they always stay too long. Well,
But why do you think it is that they're not? I mean, if they wanted to, they could just call. This could actually happen. In Canada right now, the Liberals could just call an election and just say, let's just get this over with.
Yeah.
We're not going to win the next election, November 2025. Why not just get this over with? And this is where this really bothers me.
Yeah.
Because for the sake of the country, everyone's done with you. I think they're going to light this place on fire on the way out. And I don't think they're going to do it intentionally because they're bad people trying to destroy the country. I think in Trudeau's head, he actually thinks that he's doing a good thing and he's fighting the fight for climate change, but he doesn't know what he's doing. Chrystia Freeland, on the finance minister, doesn't know what she's doing. We have this whack job who's the environment minister. They're very ideological.
Yeah.
And when you're driven by ideology as opposed to logic, you do things that don't make any sense and you can't convince them otherwise.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned for the country. The number one, the fact that they're not calling an election when they know they're not going to win in November 2025. And then I'm just afraid what they're going to do between now and then. And I don't know, I think it just kind of shows their character that this guy I think he's delusional. You don't have to answer the question. I know you've met him a couple times. I think he's absolutely delusional, and I think he's doing a lot of harm for the country. I don't think he knows what he's doing. And it's okay to bring in immigrants. Obviously, we need to have immigrants. A lot of people are retiring, or the boomers are retiring. We need to be able to pay their pension for when they retire, and we need to get people that are working and stuff. But when, François Legault said this the other day, there's a lot of things François Legault does that I don't agree with, but he said this perfectly. He's like, look, Quebec has always done its part bringing in immigration, 300,000 people a year. And he's like, when you bump that number up to 600,000 people per year, he's like, we don't have enough housing, like we were talking about earlier. We don't have enough teachers. We don't have enough nurses. There's just too much strain on the system. Yeah. And then right in front of Trudeau's face, it's funny, they're on the podium, and he goes, I've been saying this, goes, other provincial leaders have been saying this, and he goes, the federal government hasn't listened to a word that we've said. And I respected that he said it right in front of Trudeau's face. It was funny to see.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I think this guy is dangerous, and I think, because, like what you said, he's not a politician. I think you're just being nice by saying he's not qualified to be leading the country.
He's not.
Yeah. And, you can only run a political platform on feelings and vibes for so long. Eventually you need to, you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah. It almost reminds me of when you have a GM in sports and he knows his contract's not going to be renewed, and he goes and he trades all the veteran players for not the veteran players, but he trades all the draft picks and the young players that have potential for older players just to have one last playoff run. And you're so scared about what he's going to do in that final year of his contract that you're like, oh my God, he left us with such a mess. I try to come up with analogies that make sense to me especially, and this is the analogy that I'm getting from the way you're explaining it. So do I think that he's fit? No. Am I going to stop voting for Liberals? Probably. I probably am. And I would, I would say it too, because what happens is my father used to have a business too, and he used to run a business. Yeah. But my father, he was very loyal to the Liberal Party because he just really liked what the Liberal Party did for our community. But
it's a different party today.
It's a totally different party today. Yeah. So I look at all these other parties and I'm like, Stephen Harper did such good things for the Canadian economy.
He did.
But Stephen Harper's not liberal. You know? So and a lot of people look at me and they're like, hold on a minute, Raymond, you're Sikh and you're not a supporter of Jagmeet Singh. He's not a politician either. Yeah. He's not. He's a lawyer from the GTA. And I don't think he's a politician. I think he's there for the fame. And I have a lot of clients that support Jagmeet, a lot of clients that support Justin Trudeau, and then I have a lot of people in my family that support the Conservatives, depending on who the leader is, of course. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is my opinion. I can't be biased based on who someone sees value in. Personally, for me, I also think that the way elections work and our democracy, I guess, if you want to call it, over here in Canada, I think the way it's done is the amount of elections we have, the way we vote, it's such a flawed, broken system. It doesn't work. Look at the American system. It's very simple. Every 4 years, you have an election for the country.
Yeah.
You could only be there for 2 terms.
Yep.
That's it. And then after that, you're out. And then you do it again, rinse and repeat. I also think that the way it should work is this. You should have a 2-tier ballot system. If I live in Kirkland, and in Kirkland on the West Island, I like the guy that represents this area and he may be liberal, I'll vote for him. But if I like what the Conservatives are going to do for Canada and income tax and all that, I'll go Conservative. So it should be like, this is who I want locally and this is who I want at the federal level.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a broken system. Like,
I agree.
Everything else is evolving in life, but our political system isn't, especially in this country.
It's very difficult to change things. And I just have a question that just popped into my head there. So based on, we've talked a lot about the increase in the capital gains tax, on this podcast.
Yeah.
We've talked about the impact. I had a guest on called, his name's Bill Mitchell. So we were talking about basically the impact it would have on the stock market, on the local economy here, Canadian businesses. What impact will the increase in capital gains have on Canadian real estate? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Because on the one side, you basically get people that are saying, so it's like, well, you know what, real estate owners, typically speaking, it's the top 1%, the top 5%, they can afford to pay this tax anyways. Yeah. I have a different opinion, but I want to hear your opinion first. So do you think that this increase in capital gains tax that they passed, I think it was 2 months ago, do you think it's a good thing for real estate? And good thing meaning that it's going to drop real estate prices, or is it going to increase, put further pressure on prices moving forward?
So I think, one, the way people view it, especially even with the foreign buyers tax that they implemented in BC and Toronto, or Ontario for that matter, I think people view it, the high net worth individuals view it as a cost of doing business. But I also view it as people that are going to be, paying this capital gain or factoring into their sale. I think you're going to see less investors selling their properties in the future. Mm-hmm. So that's going to decrease the amount of inventory. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good thing, because the lower the inventory levels and whether the interest rates are high or not, that consistently creates prices going out of control.
Yep.
What happened in COVID? Your cost of borrowing money was 1.5%. Mm-hmm. Every 3 streets had one house for sale on it, and that one house had 10 people bidding on it.
Yep.
What happens? Every bid is $10,000. You sold for $100,000 over asking. Great. Those people are now calling me saying, Raymond, we need to sell our house. We can't renew at 6%. You know what I'm telling them? You need to sell at a loss. And the funny thing is, they have to sell at a loss because they were paying $1,500 on their mortgage payment. Now they're paying $3,500 if they renew. Where's that money coming from?
So how many people are, I know you can't put like an exact number, but just talking through your experience right now, talking with your clients, and how many people are in this situation having to renew their mortgage rates? How many people are going like, shit, I can't afford this. I have to sell my house. Is it a lot? Is it?
I would say for every 5 to 7 phone calls I get, at least 1 or 2 people are in that situation.
But I have to sell. I can't afford my.
That's right.
Wow.
But I had a client recently, bought for $950,000.
Yeah.
I told him his house is probably worth $850 on a good day. That's $100,000 gone right there.
Wow.
And even at $850, he didn't get any offers. So imagine if he gets $825, $125's gone. Now we go back to your original question, where you said, is it better to rent? Imagine the guy renting the same type of house. He's like, yeah, I have $400,000 in the markets, and I'm giving my landlord $2,500 a month. Plus, I can move anytime.
Yeah.
And if anything happens, including a flood, he comes and takes care of it. My basement is going to cost me $70,000 to fix. My house is 1.5 years old.
Shit. After the floods for
after the
9th
floods,
and 10th?
and I only got 7 inches of water. That's $70,000. Granted, insurance is taking care of most of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're feeling that too. I'm not sure if you do residential.
We do residential, yes.
So insurance is taking a big portion of it, and we're grateful for the insurance companies, but they're not going to take care of all of it.
No.
Now, where's the rest of the money coming out from?
Out of your pocket.
Right? So like
that's one thing too, and sorry to interrupt you there. I think people, they don't fully know what's in it. They don't know how expensive it is to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
And I think that we're, as Canadians and Americans, we're still dealt this bill of goods that says it's like the Canadian dream: own a house, go to school, work a job, start a family. And it's just not the same anymore. And people need to realize it's not like 1985 anymore. In 1985, absolutely, I think you should have been buying a house, raise a family there. And there's still an argument to have a house today. But in terms of, is it a good financial decision? I would say for most people to buy a house and use it as your principal residence, it's not a wise decision today.
That's right.
And I know, you know, you're a real estate broker. I'm not trying to insult what it is that you do, and I know you're very good at what it is that you do. But I think there's just so many factors right now, and it's so broken. And then there's the other argument too. The government, everyone. It's like they always say this. Everyone wants to talk about affordable housing. They just don't want it to be their house.
100%.
And so they say a lot of things. There's a housing accelerator fund. Are you aware of what the housing accelerator fund is? I got to tell you about this.
Yeah, I got to hear about that.
Yeah. So, but we'll get into that. But there's like, so the politicians, they talk their book. I'm going to make housing affordable. But then at the same time, Trudeau goes in and he says, I'm going to make it affordable. Well, but I can't make it like that affordable because if, you know, most people's wealth is tied up in their house. If the housing market corrects itself by 20, 30, 40% nationally, well, number one, the banks have a big problem. Yeah. They're not going to let that happen. Number two, people's net worth is a lot of times tied up in the house. People have HELOCs. We're just in such a mess of debt in Canada. Other countries too. It's not just us.
Of course.
I don't know. I keep, it's like, what's the end game here? I always just come back to this. And I didn't really plan on going to talk about this on the podcast, but since we're here, I like talking about this stuff more from like a macro perspective. Like what the hell happens here? I just feel like, and you're saying for every 5 or 7 calls that you take, one person's calling saying, dude, I can't afford my house anymore.
Yeah.
I need to sell my house. And you're just giving to them straight, well, dude, you're going to lose 100, 200 grand here, 300 grand.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, the funny thing is that we're getting those calls today. COVID happened in 2020, March 15th, 2020. The 5-year term for mortgages is the most available fixed mortgage term. What does that mean? This coming spring, renewals are coming up. Yeah. 2021 is what we hit the peak of the market. 2026 is the 5-year term. Yeah. The next 2 years, and we could save this as a clip, the next 2 years, there is going to be more homes for sale than you have seen in probably over a decade. And that's my belief. I think I am going to be inundated with phone calls of people wanting to sell their home in the next 18 to 24 months. I see it. And it's funny, I had this conversation with my wife this morning who works with me in the business. I said, buckle up, let's go on vacation at the end of this year because the next year is going to be all hands on deck. I see it coming. Just with 3 consecutive interest rate decreases, I think my last 3 weeks have been the busiest 3 weeks of the whole year.
For people wanting to buy or sell? Both.
And the funny thing is, people wanting to sell, I get calls, I get 2 to 5 phone calls every week of people that want to either rent out a property or sell it because I'm an expert in listing rather than working with buyers, but I do work with buyers as well. And people are still calling to sell, but I can only list as many properties as there are buyers because at the end of the day, if I have 50 listings and I'm only selling 5 of them, now I'm servicing the other 45. And you need bandwidth for that, and you don't want to burn out. And you want to give a good level of service to all your clients. So now what's happening is I put a listing out and I know it's going to sell. So things are starting to move. So I think that's...
And the listings you're putting out are typically speaking less expensive than what they purchased it for? Or that's a dumb question.
No.
I guess it depends on when they...
No. So most of the sales now are people that, are looking at the market and saying, perfect, interest rates are starting to come down. Let's sell here a house that we're making like 100 grand on that we bought in like 2016. And let's go ahead and buy something now and let's upgrade before prices go up and bidding comes back, because bidding will come back. People think we're not going to have bidding wars again. We will 100% have bidding wars again, but it will be on properties that are priced accordingly and in areas that there's still not as much inventory. For example, there's still not a lot of inventory available in areas like Point Claire. There's still not a lot of inventory available in really nice areas of Kirkland or the really sought after areas of DDO. Even out in St. Lazare, people are always complaining about the bridge, but people want to live in St. Lazare. They want to send their kids to Bourget.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So if you're self-employed, you work from home, or your business is here on the West Island like yours, why not live in St. Lazare? When the bridge is okay, you're here in 20 minutes. Right? You're just going to fly in the morning. I had a client, or he's a family friend, but he's also a client. He used to live in Vaudreuil, and his office was in downtown near McGill College. And when the bridge was fine, he would just get to the office at 6 a.m. and work out in downtown. So his gym membership was in downtown. He was like, it's perfect. I get to the office before everyone. I work out. I get all my work done. And then if I want, I could be out of there at noon, come golf, and then head home. You know, so...
Sounds like a good life.
Yeah, it sounds like a great life. Yeah. Luckily, we have the luxury of having that life too, if we want. You know. Yeah. But it all comes down to time management.
Okay, so let's switch gears there, and I want to kind of stay on this point. So right now, it sounds like there's a really good opportunity coming up for real estate brokers.
Yes.
And I don't know off the top of my head like what percentage you belong to with regards to like the most productive real estate brokers. I would definitely say you're probably the top 1% real estate broker.
Thank you.
And what advice would you give to other real estate brokers right now with the opportunity that you're seeing in the market, where transactions are most likely going to increase over the next 2 years with all of these renewals coming up due to the change in interest rates, or just basically people having to renew their 5-year fixed mortgage? Like what I'm a broker that just started off, and sorry, let me just restart a little bit here.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I don't know what the exact number is, but I can say for Ontario, about 45,000 real estate brokers are no longer real estate brokers just because the market's shit.
Yeah.
What advice are you going to give to someone today who's starting off in real estate, or someone who actually wants to like double down and just perform better in real estate? Like what tips would you give for them to be more successful?
So if someone's starting out in this market right now, it's very simple. I'm seeing a lot of brokers that are doing this part-time. I would tell them, stop. You're doing a disservice to our profession, and you're doing a disservice to the clients. Doing it part-time, having one foot in one boat and one foot in another, it doesn't help anyone. And the reason it doesn't help anyone is not only are you doing a disservice to your client, but when I'm talking to you and I'm trying to get something from you and we need to speak on like Tuesday afternoon and you're not getting back to me, it's very frustrating because then I look bad in front of my clients. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing a lot of that right now. I'm seeing a lot of people who became brokers during COVID. And then when interest rates started going up, they said, you know what, we need to go back to our jobs. We need to go back to, whether it's a waitress or a barmaid or a bartender, or even someone that was working in the corporate world that wanted to supplement their income. Do one or the other. And if you don't want to do one or the other, park your license. It's very simple. I'm not scared to say it. Did I start out part-time? Yes, I did. But I got to a point where...
How old are you when you started?
I started when I was 26.
Okay.
So I started at a time where I was still working, but the reason I was part-time is because my goal was never to become a real estate broker like I am today. My goal was actually the reason I became a real estate broker is because my father said to me, he had a commercial property because he's in logistics and trucking, and his business was right around the corner from here. And he ended up selling, he had 3 acres of land and he had a terminal there with like the garages and the offices and everything and the warehouse. And he ended up selling it, and the broker he sold it to, he came in, I see him pull up with his Audi. He's a well-known commercial broker in the West Island. He pulls up. At the time I was like 24 years old. And he comes in, he talks to my dad, he shoots the shit, he signs the contract, he leaves. 2 weeks later, he brings my dad a buyer. My dad pays him $80,000 commission. And my dad looks at me and he says, you make less a year at your IT job than this guy made in 2 weeks. And you have the gift of gab. So you need to go and become a real estate broker.
So your father was the one to push you into the industry?
Yeah, he pushed me and he said, go get your real estate license because it's the only business you can start in this economy with less than $10,000 of an initial investment. And I wanted to do it because I was going to help him with his properties. I was going to be like, Dad, don't pay someone 80 grand. You know, we'll pay a collaborating commission. We'll keep the money in the family. We'll buy some, residential properties. Maybe I'll buy a flip or two, and I'll continue working because I loved the corporate world at the time, which I hate right now. I don't like the corporate world. When I look back on hindsight, I'm like, oh my God. But that's the first thing I would do, and that's the first thing I would say. Okay. The second thing I would say is it's very simple. Unfortunately, a lot of brokers that are in the business right now, their priorities are completely out of whack.
In what sense?
Time management. Their priorities are completely out of whack.
When you're saying time management, so you're talking about someone who is still a part-time broker, or someone, you're talking full-time brokers and they still have a wacky time management schedule?
Full-time brokers, okay, want to do really well in real estate, ask you for advice, ask you to become a mentor, but completely like no priorities whatsoever. Tuesday afternoon, are you at the office making cold calls, trying to generate business, trying to build your brand, or are you having brunch at Marcus? Like what are we doing here? If your brunch is with a developer or someone that's going to give you $1 million of business in the next 3 months, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're doing it to post Instagram photos with your girlies or your guy friends.
There's the problem. Yeah. So the problem in our industry is that it's one of the only industries where people put everything on Instagram and they constantly want to be Insta famous as a byproduct of what they do for life.
Why are real estate brokers? Because a lot of times here's the stereotype of a real estate broker. And I'm not saying you're like this. I know you're a professional and you're good at what you do. But when I think about the stereotype of a real estate broker, I think of a guy or a girl, no, mostly a guy. He's driving a car he can't afford. He's wearing a watch he can't afford. Shows up to meetings. It's kind of like comes across as a little bit of a douchebag. Yeah. It's like a fake it till you make it industry. Yeah. Is there truth to that? Are there a lot of people who actually operate like that?
100%.
Why are they doing this?
I love that you asked me this question. They're doing it because of the TV shows. All those TV shows, Selling Sunset, $1 Million Listing.
Sirhan.
Sirhan. Yeah. They're doing it all because of that. So the reason they're doing it because of that is very simple. It's because back in the day, what was a real estate agent? A real estate agent was the guy with the suit and the tie that would show up to your parents' house. Yeah. Okay. He had a modest car. Yeah. His office was at one of the big banners on Sources St. John's or St. Charles, if your house was in the West Island. Yeah. And he actually got your parents in the car and shopped for properties with them. The industry has completely changed because of social media and these TV shows. And these TV shows are stupid. And I'll tell you why. None of them are real. And people watch them and they're like, oh yeah, I was watching this on $1 Million Listing. It's all bullshit. None of it is real. All of the transactions that happen behind closed doors. All of the transactions that need to be showcased in our fluff are on TV. It's very simple. They'll show a property. They'll be like, Ryan Sirhan or, the guys from $1 Million Listing LA.
Those the twins there, the bald twins?
There's the bald twins. And that's I think it's Selling Sunset or one of those shows. Okay. So you'll see these shows. And first of all, these girls that are on these shows, they look like models and actresses. They don't look like real estate brokers.
They look like Barbie dolls.
Yeah, exactly. They don't look like real estate brokers, right? No. So what happens is they'll show this house. They'll be like, oh, this $80 million house, potential commission $400,000. Yeah. Potential commission $3 million. I'm sorry, but people watch this and they come home and they're like, yeah, we're going to become realtors. I mean, do you watch Grey's Anatomy and then try to perform these TV shows have made the business so superficial that it's so annoying. It's so annoying. The more
and by the way, just sorry to interrupt. If I'm purchasing if I want to buy a piece of real estate, and my broker shows up in a car that's nicer than mine, or in a car that's, let's say, a brand new Porsche or something like that, I'm going to think, damn, I'm paying this guy too much commission. That's the first thing I'm going to think.
100%.
And it's like the same thing as an insurance broker. So when I go over to my golf course at Beaconsfield Golf Course, I am very aware of the fact I am never going to show up in a Porsche unless maybe I'm like in my 50s and people have known me for all these years. All right, Curtis, you deserve it by now. Yeah. I'm 35 years old. Yeah. I can't show up in a super nice car. Number one, it's a horrible look. I have a lot of clients at the golf course. I have a lot of clients in different places too. But if you show up to your client's place of business in a car that's nicer than theirs, and you're younger than them, significantly younger than them, they're going to think you're an idiot. Same thing for a watch. This is my opinion. You can have a nice watch, but if you're kind of outshining your prospect, I don't think it's a good thing. So it's just, I always go back to, I like to come across as more modest and more humble.
Yeah.
I like to think that I am. Sometimes I'm not. I'm working on that. But, and I think a tip for people who, we both work in sales. I sell insurance. You sell real estate. We offer a lot more than that. But I just don't think it's a good idea to live that flashy lifestyle. And I think ultimately it's going to hurt you business-wise as opposed to help your career. And a lot of these people are getting suckered in through these shows on Netflix and shoe the Instagram lifestyle. And it's like you're being a sucker. That's not how it actually works.
Yeah. So if you have to go on Instagram and showcase that you leased a Lamborghini for a year and you think that's going to get you more business, in the short term it might. In the end, what's going to really work for you is your knowledge, your expertise, how you treat people, and the fact that you're actually doing your job.
Yeah.
So if you have a Lamborghini and you don't answer your phone and you're hungover every weekend, I'm sorry. Eventually, and the clients that want to work with those types of clients and they don't catch on, it's fine. You don't want those clients anyways. But the problem in our industry is very simple. You have these brokers that are showcasing these very extravagant lifestyles, whether it's the travel, the cars, all this stuff, but they're crying about not making enough sales at the office. So it's like, which one is it, And I'm sorry, but like that's one of the reasons why we're living in such a fake society now. It's thanks to these types of shows and social media, and that's why, you hear about, you're married. I'm married. So
I have a girlfriend.
You have a girlfriend.
Yeah,
okay. So you have a girlfriend. I'm married. So we're kind of past that age. But I hear from this younger generation now where like, my nephews tell me all the time. They're like, yeah, girls will ask us, what's your credit score? How much do you make a year? I never remember having those conversations.
No, me either.
Not even with my wife.
This is in Montreal?
Wife. Yeah, Montreal, Toronto, you name it. It's happening everywhere because social media and these types of shows have made the world closer.
And for the guys out there too, like this is for the audience. If a girl's asking you that question, you don't want to date this girl.
That's so funny.
You can have fun with her for a night if you want, be my guest. But like, don't date a woman who's asking you like on
100%
what your credit score is or what can you buy for me. How many followers do you have on Instagram?
Yeah. I would tell her my credit score really sucks, and I what are we gonna do together to bring it up? Let's work together, baby.
That's good. No, sometimes too, like, cause I like to play that game, and it's just like if someone comes up to me and they're asking me a question, I'm not gonna go, oh, I own an insurance brokerage or this, because you're asking me that immediately. If that's where the conversation is leading and organically it comes out, I have no problem with that. But if you're like right to the point, and I find that a lot of girls in Toronto are like this. If you're like super direct and you go, what do you do for work?
Yeah.
And it's literally the first question you ask within 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I love to say I live in my mom's basement.
Yeah.
I don't, but I'm just basically saying I have no interest in speaking to you because you're an asshole.
Yeah.
And
it's not a real world anymore.
No, it's not.
It's not a real world.
There's no substance. It's very shallow.
And it's very shallow. And the reason it's not a real world is because not only because of social media, it's also because of things like AI.
Yeah.
So we're living in a world where can you trust that, Trump or Kamala Harris really said that? Is that really their video? Did they really do that? Was that really a bullet?
No,
right. Granted it was live and people were there and they were ducking and running for their lives, but you have to kind of question everything. And that's where I'm a huge believer of always go against the grain. So that's how I built my business. My business was always built where, developers started building condos and high rises in downtown. Everyone in the suburbs were like, yeah, we're not going in downtown. It's so hard to find parking. We don't want to sell those towers. I was like, I'll do it. And I went while everyone else was trying to sell homes on the West Island. And then, go against the grain, do things differently. Try to not reinvent the wheel, but just push the envelope. And
would you say that you're a contrarian in other parts of your life? Like, were you the kid in school that whenever, like, against the grain, a contrarian? So, like, in school, were you the kid that when the teacher would tell you to do something and just out of spite, just because you're like a little bit stubborn, would you go, no, I don't want to do that?
100%. I hate authority.
Yeah, me too.
I hate authority. I actually, I have friends that are cops, but I can't stand like I often see like people talking to the cops like in the mall or something like that. Or even when I get pulled over, I become very cold. I don't like authority. Like and that's why I hated working for someone, because I hate being told, oh yeah, you know what, do me a favor, I need you to take your break in 30 minutes rather than right now. So you're going to tell me when I could go pee and grab a cup of coffee? Like, that's one of the reasons why I really got, and granted, I used to work in the corporate world many, many, many years ago. Apparently it's not like that anymore. It's very lax, I mean, I'm here sitting in this beautiful office. You just showed me a really cool room with like a golf simulator.
It's not bad, eh?
Yeah, and where you could watch like, football games and, just, have a scotch if that's what your thing is. But that's what the world has come to now. So being a contrarian, I think that I go against the grain. I think I've always been like that. Like I try to do things differently. It's made me successful in my business. And then the beauty is that I see like other brokers copying the things I've done, and, impersonation or copying someone is this finest form of flattery, whatever, but I mean, there's certain things that, I'll see other brokers like rip it off completely or they'll try to mimic it. And I'm sure the same thing happens with you in your industry,
Yeah.
Like I find you're also doing with your industry what I kind of did with real estate, whether it's the radio ads where, you speak yourself and I hear your voice on the radio ads yourself. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So
it's to cut through the noise of the generic corporate
100%,
advertisements.
100%. And I love your line where you said, buying insurance can suck. We just wanted to suck a little less.
Like exactly. Buying insurance sucks. We make it suck less.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when I heard that was before I met you and you were on our podcast. I was like, but I knew who you were, through Richard and Justin.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, this is amazing, man. Like and that's what I used to do. I used to go into the studio in downtown on René Lévesque. I used to record my ads. And I used to say my slogan at the end, and I would have something catchy
Sing,
at the
sign,
beginning.
sold, right?
You got it. Yeah. I would have something catchy at the beginning, something like, something, instead of explaining who I am or my name or my title, saying something catchy and then jumping into it, so people are like, oh, who's that, you know?
People take you seriously in your profession. I definitely take you seriously in your profession. I want to pay you a compliment, actually. So it's like, you honestly, this is when I think of you, and I want to say this on your podcast when we did it back in March or something, but it wasn't part of the conversation, so I don't want to say that. You come across as a professional who is a family man with good values. Now, I don't know you super well. So maybe you're not like that at all. I get the feeling that you are actually like that, but that's how you come across. It's like you're a professional, you know what you're doing, you deliver results, and you enjoy what it is that you do.
Yeah.
So you clearly take your craft seriously.
Yeah.
So kind of back to like the original question, or one of the questions that I was asking, like if someone wants to work in real estate, how would you mentor them?
So the way I would mentor them is very simple. I mean, first I would look for someone that I see a little bit of myself in them. One of the problems in this industry also is that people will try to hire brokers or become mentors to them just to have this illusion that they have a huge team. But they're not doing anything. All they're doing is making these people go, do certain things for them, but the person's not learning. Now it depends. Are you new to the business or are you seasoned? If you're new to the business, the way I would mentor them is by teaching them from the way. Well, the thing is, the way I learned was I didn't have a mentor. So I had to learn everything myself.
Learn on the streets.
Yeah, learn on the streets. Yeah, literally. On the streets of the West Island. Yeah. So what I did was I used to be at Royal LePage, which is a big banner.
Yeah.
A multinational. And when I was at Royal LePage, I would go to the weekly meetings. I would pick the brain of the older brokers, but I came into this industry when those brokers were the guy with the suit and tie, with the modest car. So I have a bit of both. I'm also on social media, but I'm also taught from the old school.
Which version do you like better? This is kind of just a little tangent, but you don't have to give a long answer. Which version of the real estate broker do you like better?
The hybrid version. You need both.
Okay.
Yeah, you need both. You need to be a professional, but you need to evolve with the times. But don't be fake, and have your priorities in check. You know, and people think that they're going to go into real estate, and the funniest thing I always hear from real estate brokers when they start, I find it funny because they feel that this is the prize, you know, or not the prize, but like this is the ultimate goal. I ask them, I say, what's your goal? I want to make $100,000. This is what they say. I want to make $100,000. And I'm like, okay, why? What's your why? Why do you want to make $100,000? Oh, because like, you know, I want to travel more and I want to, you know, maybe buy my own condo and I really want to upgrade my car. $100,000 is not enough.
Maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Not today.
Yeah. I remember when I was in school, I was like, oh yeah, like that guy just got promoted to like VP. He's making 120 grand.
Yeah.
That was like a huge deal.
Yeah.
You know? So now how far does $100 get you? Go to IGA or Metro. How far does it get you really? You know, 2 bags, you know, if you're lucky. So long story short, at the end of the day, it's like when they say that, I'm like, okay, well, that's problem number one. If you want to make $100,000, go get a job. Because you will go get a job and you'll probably start at like 60 to 80 and eventually you're going to make 100. And trust me, there's less stress. It's easier and you'll be able, but no, because they want to be Insta famous. Because at the end of the day, they can't show their corporate job at a call center or as a teller in a bank or a financial advisor or whatever. They can't show that off on Instagram. They don't.
So people are actually going into the industry to be Insta famous?
100%.
What?
100%. People go into the industry to be, well, there's obviously, I'm not saying this for everyone, but there's a lot of people going into the industry because of these TV shows and social media.
Yeah.
But it's so flawed because when you deal with them, you realize
this guy's full of shit.
This person has no idea. They don't answer their phone. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to read an inspection report. They don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to file their GST, QST. Like, they don't realize that, okay, well, first of all, to break it down, Ali and I always talk about this.
Yeah.
There's 2 types of actually there's 3, but I'll talk about the 2. The third is someone that works for like a builder and is a sales representative for which you don't need a real estate license for. There's 2 types of real estate brokers. There's the ones that get up every morning and they say, shit, it's been 2 weeks. I haven't sold a house. I got to sell a house. And they start like posting stuff on Facebook and Instagram and making a few phone calls at the office and boom, they get a listing or they get a buyer. They work with that person for like 2 weeks and they sell a property. Then there's the people that run businesses. So they start every year with, this is our goal. This is where we need to be every quarter. We have payroll. We file our taxes quarterly. We have a marketing budget. We have systems in place on how to get new leads. We have leverage. We have our business working for us. There's days that I work in my business. There's days that I work on my business.
Yep.
There's mortgage brokers I have relationships with, inspectors, insurance people. That's a business. So which one of the 2 do you want to be? That's my first question. And if they can't even answer that question, they still need a lot of like massaging. They still need a lot of educating. And a lot of them just want to get into the industry to make 100 grand or be Insta famous or both. Because keep in mind, if they could sell 10 properties at $10,000 commission a property, make $100,000, and with all that free time be at the gym and be like popping bottles, and that's their life, then go ahead and do it. But you're going to realize that at the end of the day, you're going to fall behind. And when times get tough, the cream rises to the top, and it's the seasoned brokers and agents that get the business.
What personality traits makes a good broker? Because just from what I'm gathering from all of this, so if you're speaking to somebody and one of the things they say is, well, I want to be Insta famous, if that's what's actually motivating you, that's a very shallow person.
Yeah.
With probably like really deep insecurities. I would assume you probably won't spend any time trying to mentor them, or you don't really want to work with a person like that. Because a person like that, in my opinion, and again, I'm not in your industry, but I bet you anything that person's not going to be there in 5 years, because if that's your motivating factor, if that's your motivation just to become Insta famous, like that's not a very good reason. That's not a very good why, is what you said earlier. So it's like, and here, this ties into my next question. So it's like, how do you define success? And then kind of back even a little bit earlier, you do come across as a family man. You are a family man, and you're a man of faith. So like, does this help? How does that part of your life help shape how you define success? It's a pretty big question.
That's a very big question. Yeah. So my definition of success, I have many definitions of success, but my definition of success is to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want. That's one of my definitions. And the reason I have that definition is earlier when I told you I know someone that, leaves Vaudreuil at 6 a.m., works in the morning, gets most of his work done, goes to the gym in downtown, and then noon, 1 o'clock, later in the week, Thursday or Friday, leaves the office and goes and golfs. That's freedom. Mm-hmm. So for me, success is freedom because I worked in the corporate world. I know what it's like to work for the man. But you need discipline to become the man. Mm-hmm. You need crazy discipline to become the man.
Can you give us an example?
You need to, it's interesting because I was thinking about this yesterday and I was like, it might come up on the podcast. Anything you do in life, whatever you're doing and you think you're going to be good at it and you're going to be successful, while you're in it, you're not doing enough. So for example, I work out with a personal trainer. Yeah. And the personal trainer goes to me the other day. I sent him a message. Okay. I've been training with him for almost 4 months now. Okay. And he's the type of trainer. Good. Yeah. Thank you. He's the type of trainer that he puts me through pain. Like I want to vomit, it's
not fun during.
No, it's not fun during, but the endorphins afterwards, it's a natural high all day. Yeah. And when I walk out of that gym, I feel a million times better. I can conquer the day. Mm-hmm. Whatever I work out with him, I'm feeling pain and I'm not really resentful towards him, but I'm feeling pain. And like, he'll say one more round, one more set, or he'll do like a countdown and he'll stop at 3. He'll be like, okay, 3rd rep, instead of 2, he'll just wait at 3. And I'm like, oh my God, like he'll be like, hold it there or whatever. The other day I sent him a text message. I said 2 things. I go, 1, what have you seen of me that I need to improve on? And 2, what do I need to do now to get to another level? He literally made it sound like whatever I've done was nothing. Like this, former NHL player, like everything I've done, not enough, bud. Like you're still eating too much. You need to cut down on the food. You're going to Wild Willie's for ice cream, once a month.
I love Wild Willie's.
I love Wild Willie's. You're going to Wild Willie's once a month in the summer for ice cream. You're going to go 3 months with 0 sugar. Yeah. You're going to work out every day. And I did 75 hard and I went through absolute torture, but you feel amazing when it's done because you feel so much more confident. And you see your body transform and change in front of your eyes. And Ali did the same thing. So it's like everything you're doing, whether it's in personal training, your business, you're making 50 calls a day, you got to make 100. Mm-hmm. You're knocking on 20 doors a day, you got to knock on 40. I start every year. I'm 17 years in the business. I still start off every year by knocking on doors in January. It's minus 15 outside. I'm wearing my jacket. I have my scarf on. I'm going door to door in a specific area that I know I want to get more listings in. And I do it in January.
So why do you keep pushing yourself like this? Because you've already reached a certain level of success.
Yeah.
I think I don't know how much money you make, but like, I'm sure you make very good money. So, but if you, let's say, double up your revenue in a year, it's not really going to change your life. I think you would agree with that.
It's so true.
So because this is the same thing. I'm struggling with this in my head. And like, I have a lot of days where it's like, they're almost like dark days. I'm like, kind of like, what is this? Like, I don't understand what this is. What motivates you to keep pushing? Because at a certain point, and I'll just give another example. You get someone who's a billionaire. Why do they keep working? They have more money than they know what to do with. They're never going to run out of money. And yet they keep pushing every single day. You look at an Elon Musk. He obviously has a purpose. He has a why. But like, why do you do that at the beginning of the year? Because I bet you anything right now, you could just cruise on your network and you're going to live probably the same lifestyle as what you're living right now. You might have a little bit of a fancier car. You might go to a couple more dinners a year, and you might have a vacation home, maybe a little bit of a nicer vacation home. Yeah. But all in all, like, your life is the same.
Yeah.
So why do you keep doing it?
So I'll tell you in two parts. I'll tell you the monetary reason why I do it and the non-monetary. The non-monetary reason why I do it is because I want my kids to hold their head up high and be able to tell people in the future when I'm gone from this God's green earth of who their dad was. That's very important to me.
That's very touching.
Yeah, that's extremely important. I want my daughter...
You want to be a good role model for your kids.
Yeah, I want my daughter and my son to be able to say, Raymond Singh is my dad or was my dad when I'm no longer here. And I share this with my wife all the time. And I used to share it with her when I was nothing, when I wasn't even a real estate broker. I used to be like, this is what I want one day. That's one of my goals. For the monetary reasons, it's because I want to invest enough money in order to have the lifestyle I have today from the proceeds of my investments.
Which one's more important to you?
The first one.
By far, eh?
Yeah. The reason the first one's important for me is because even if I don't, real estate, my license can be taken away from me. But I know if I build that for my daughter and my son, it won't be taken away from me. So if I leave them with X amount of properties, or I leave them with money, or I leave them with a legacy, or I leave them with generational wealth, whatever it may be, monetary or not, I feel that that's extremely important to me. And you know, I also want them to have a certain lifestyle. I grew up in a very modest home. I grew up in the West Island, you know, but my dad was comfortable, but my dad wasn't like wealthy, rich.
We have the same upbringing.
Yeah,
that's like upper middle class, upper middle class.
Exactly, upper middle class, Kirkland, West Island, DDO.
But your dad probably worked his dick off.
Yes, my dad literally, and you know what? You want to hear something funny? And I'm the same way. You asked me this question of why I keep going. My dad's 73. He's still working. He's still working, but also because my dad doesn't have the hobbies I have. My dad never golfed.
Yeah.
My dad likes watching TV. He likes sports. He likes working out. Other than that, like he doesn't have a membership at a golf course. He's never swung a golf club. He's never played hockey. Yeah. You know, he doesn't know how to skate. He's an immigrant. So all these things coming into play, like what do you really do? You have a few friends. You continue working. You know, you stay busy. You know they'll go on vacation. Him and my mom, but I have a lot of hobbies. So I golf now. I love it. But I want to golf like 4 times a week after the age of 55. You know, everyone talks about freedom 55. I think that's impossible now, but I think it's possible if you structure your life accordingly.
I don't think a guy like you would. I don't think you'll ever stop because you'll go crazy.
I would go crazy. Actually, I go crazy now. Actually, when COVID hit, I was going into, because I had my own office at the time, and I wasn't at M Real Estate's head office. I had my own kind of like little, you know, flagship office, and it was out in the suburbs. It was in Vaudreuil at the time, and I would go in every day. And I would sit there, and then what I started doing
I would even like I'm not dressed very nice today, but I would even like put on dress pants, dress shirt. Yeah. I'm alone in an office.
But you're in that mindset, right? Psychological mindset. You also walk differently. You talk differently. Yeah. So what I would do is I would go into the office, and when I would go into the office, what I would do is there wasn't much real estate to work on because at the beginning we weren't essential workers. Yeah. So we weren't able to buy and sell. You couldn't even visit. Nothing. So what I did was I started doing statistics. I started saying, okay, in the past 12 months, how many properties sold in this area at what price in relation to last year? Then I started doing like, okay, let's work on new ideas on how to market new construction condos downtown. Then what I did was I went on Instagram and Facebook Live, and I said, log into my Zoom seminar. Anyone interested about knowing what's going to happen with the real estate market and all the uncertainties, I'm going to have a quick Q&A. So I had a bunch of people, like random people that I've never met. Some didn't have their video on, some had their video on, out of which 3 or 4 people are now real estate brokers because their face was familiar. So now they became real estate brokers. And when I see them like in the field or I'll do a transaction with them, they're like, yeah, we attended that Q&A you did during COVID and we're real estate agents now, but we wanted to log on because we wanted to see what you were going to say because we were in the course at the time. So I just kept myself busy. And I think at the end of the day, you're either born with it or you're
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
I would definitely agree. Like there's something in an entrepreneur's mind that you can't teach. You can either improve it, you can work on it, but if you're someone who ultimately just likes to, if you're more of a reactive person as opposed to proactive people, like that's for when I talk about entrepreneurs or basically people that work. In my opinion, there's 2 types of people. There's people who are reactive, they wait for everything to come to them, and there's people who are proactive. They push the envelope. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to grow a business, you need to be proactive. You have to always be going out there and pushing the envelope and always trying to do new things. But then the part of my life where I'm at right now is, for me at least, this creates a situation where I never take a chance to step back and smell the roses and go, wow, look at everything you've built here. Because you're never satisfied.
Yeah.
And that in my life right now, and this is what I'm trying to work on, it creates almost an unhappiness.
100%.
And this is like a philosophical conversation right now, and it's like I don't know if it's good for me or if it's bad for me.
Yeah.
That
Do you meditate?
Not as much as I should, but I try to.
Yeah. So I was talking to someone yesterday about yoga and meditation and finding inner peace,
living in the present, and being happy. And sorry to cut you off. It just came to my mind. I'm never happy with what I have, and it spills into other parts of my life that are really good.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I'm never satisfied.
No, I'm the same way.
I'm actually I have a beautiful girlfriend. She's great. She's supportive. But like, it's like I find myself all like nitpick little things. No one's perfect. You're never gonna like date someone who's perfect, who has everything. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
And this thing that I have at work where I'm never satisfied and is actually very beneficial for my career is not beneficial in other parts of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you speak to that too, or?
I actually can speak to that big time. I actually have had, I could go on record and say it, and I've said it on my podcast. I've had, problems with burnout. I've had problems with mental health. There's a stigma around it where men don't talk about it. I think that's changing. I think that we're going into a time in society where men are more open about their issues. And the reason why I got burnt out and the reason why, I dealt with mental health issues is because of, one of the reasons was because the finish line kept moving for me.
Yeah.
The goalpost is constantly moving,
Yeah.
And if you were to ask me 15 years ago, Raymond, this is where you'll be in 15 years on the Trans-Canada, in a podcast with KBD, with Curtis, I probably wouldn't have believed you. And everything I have today has surpassed what I envisioned for myself at this point in my life, even though I wanted it all and I knew I would achieve it because I'm very ambitious. But it does spill over to every aspect of life, because what happens is I go through these bouts of being extremely ungrateful. And it's the worst feeling, because what happens is when I'm ungrateful, I can't be in the moment with my 2 kids and my wife and enjoy that ice cream at Wild Willie's. I can't. I'm not, because this is not enough. That's not enough. I'm not doing enough business. I don't have this. I don't have the latest model of my car. I don't, So it's like, at what point does it stop? And when it stops for me, and this is crazy, maybe I'm only like this, it stops for me when I'm sitting at a terminal or the lounge at the airport with a boarding pass in my hand, about to go somewhere. That's when it stops. I have to physically remove myself from Montreal in order for me to look and be like, holy crap.
To actually stop and smell the roses.
Smell the roses.
Yeah.
Look back and be like, this is what you're going back home to.
Yeah.
Because when you travel the world, you realize that what we have here is like 99% better than what people have in other countries.
Yeah.
Like something as simple as, I went to India and Dubai for a month. It was my second time in Dubai, but actually I think it was right after we shot for our last podcast. And I went to India, and I went to India after 35 years. And there's parts of India where like you're lucky to get fresh water to drink. And you have to, and if you don't have money to buy bottled water, you're not drinking water. So when I was there, it's like, the guy that was, the guy at the juice stand that was making fresh juice in the morning, this guy's on his bike in 35-degree heat, trying to sell juice to like the locals. And he would kill to even come here and get a job as a janitor in this building. Because it's far superior than the life he's living there. And when you look back, it kind of gives me the ability to be like, I'm extremely grateful. This is what I'm going back to. This is what I've built. And then you're grateful because you're constantly, getting phone calls and text messages and emails of people saying, yeah, when are you going to be back? I want to do this. I want to sell this. I want to buy this. I want to meet up because I want to collaborate on this. So it's just, you need to sometimes remove yourself from the situation, and slow life down yourself.
I've been trying to the past couple weeks. It's been nice, but then I feel guilty almost when you're kind of like, okay, I'm not going to do anything today.
Yeah.
And it lasts 5 minutes, and then I'm like,
yeah.
okay, because I don't know what to.
I find that you're shaking. Well, I find the golf courses like that too. I'll go on the golf course, and you know, the other day I walked. I don't like walking. I like karting.
Yeah,
but
same here.
Yeah, the other day I walked, and when I was walking, because the guy I was golfing with, he's a walker.
Yeah.
So it's me, him, and then he invited 2 of his guests, and we're playing around, and I go to him like halfway through, like we're on the 8th hole, and I'm like, walking is so much better. You play so much better. It's so much more peaceful. It's more of a workout.
Check your phone less.
That's exactly what he said. He goes to me, he goes, you check your phone less. That's why you're enjoying it more. Every time
when you're in a cart, every single time you go into the cart, you pop up your phone and you look at it.
You look at it right away.
Emails.
Yeah. You check your emails, check your text messages, who called me. And then when I'm done driving, or, you know, I'm already on the green or whatever, I'll jump in the cart and, like, you know, make a quick call back.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you playing golf? Are you working?
Yeah.
And if I leave my phone in the locker, I'm playing golf with anxiety. Yeah. Fear of separation.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Raymond, there's a question I wanted to go back to. So
Yeah.
just about sort of some of your goals. So number one, success, or what drives you. So you want to be a good role model for your children. Number two, to create generational wealth, or to get to a certain level of wealth. And I heard something very interesting. So it's two sides of it. So do you know Patrick Bet-David?
Of course.
Yeah. So Patrick
Huge fan.
Bet-David, same here. Man's man, great guy, very successful entrepreneur. He reminds me of you. I'm being serious. No, he has a big presence.
Yeah.
He's driven. He's doing what he's doing with a purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he just comes across as authentic.
Yeah.
He's definitely not fake it till you make it kind of
Yeah.
guy. He wants to create, he talks about it all the time now. He's at a stage in his life. He has a lot of money. He wants to create generational wealth for his children. On the other side, so basically he was on the Nelk Boys podcast, and they asked a good question. They didn't ask a good follow-up question, but basically there was another clip that they showed, and it was a guy saying, well, you know, just spend all your money, because chances are, if by the third generation, it's going to be zero anyways.
Yeah.
And Patrick Bet-David was talking about, no, I want to instill in my children responsibility, and I want this to last for generations, for whatever reason, but that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Now, do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? And what I mean by that is, because I think it can go both ways. If you give a child, they start off with $100 million, let's say. They never know what it's like to actually grind and to build something for themselves. And I think ultimately, and I'm torn on this. Because I don't know what I want to do. I want to have kids eventually. Do I want to build generational wealth? I'll have the opportunity to build generational wealth. But is that good for my children? And I don't know what the answer is. So do you think it's better for them to start off with a little bit, but they have to earn it themselves? Or do you think it's better for them to start their lives with the burden of having that much money? Because a lot of people think too that having $100 million is like, oh my God, my life would be so much better. You don't know what it's like to have a lot of money. A lot of people don't know this.
That's true.
And I'm starting to see it now. I'm not like super, super, super rich, but your relationships with people change. And a lot of people can't live with this financial burden. Sometimes there's a burden. It's like the song goes, more money, more problems.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see it now in my life. So back to the question, do you think it's a good thing to leave your kids with a lot of money, or do you think it's better to leave them with less? Because it'll help them build more character.
So my follow-up question to that is, where would, if you have a lot of money and you're not leaving it to your kids, where's it going?
Charity, let's say. Or you just blow it all on yourself.
I would probably blow it all on myself.
I think charity. I would too.
I would give a small portion to charity, a charitable cause that I'm very, that means a lot to me, or even back home in India, to the poor, or help someone out, or, religious organizations.
Yeah. But I'm always skeptical about that too, because I think a lot of times when you just give a big organization like this, it's kind of like,
where's it going?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of
100%.
times people just end up taking the money. It's like whenever we're, governments in the West, we send money to these other countries. A lot of times it's just the governments of that country that take the money. It never makes it down to the poor.
Yeah, it never makes it down to the poor. You're right.
You know what I mean? So,
or even when they have donate during Christmas, they have the videos, like the commercials on TV with poor kids in Africa, or they'll be like, donate this money.
Like what, 10 cents on the dollar makes it to the kids?
Exactly, 10 cents. So what's really making to the kids, and how much is this production, this ad costing, and
Correct.
who's the UNICEF or whatever it may be. You know, I'm not too sure about like the way all that works. But to answer your question, there's this saying in Punjabi. I won't say it in Punjabi, but I'll translate it for you. It says anything that's made for you is extremely hard to digest, and it's not just food. So anything that's already made, it's always harder to digest. And it's because the people who have it made for them, they don't value it as much as the one that made it from nothing.
And I feel like because they don't value it as much, they struggle with finding a purpose in life. And this is a crisis we're having today, especially in the West, especially amongst men.
Yeah.
Is people are, they're unhappy. I don't think it's because of the gap between the rich and the poor and all that kind of stuff. They're struggling with purpose.
Yep.
And they don't know what to do.
Yep.
So it's just, and I know for that question I just asked you, it can go both ways, but I don't know. I just think there's you hear a lot of times and you see a lot of times kids with a lot of money and are so fucking unhappy. They're ungrateful.
Yep.
They have a tough life.
Yep.
You know, like I don't know the answer to this question.
So the answer is, for me, the answer would probably be coming back to, you know, the way I see it. There's always one generation that earns and one generation that spends.
Yeah.
So the generation that earns will hand it off to the spenders, and then the third generation will have to earn again. The minute you have two consecutive generations that earn, that's when you create real generational wealth. So there's a lot of families that I work with that are developers or families that are in business, whether they're Greek, Italian, whatever, and or even Indian families. They've taught their kids to take what they have and build on it. So we've given you a foundation. We need you to continue building. Okay. And they're all in the family business. Like all the sons are in the family business. So when I look at, you know, what I would want to do, I wouldn't want to give my kids, like, split it down the middle and give them, like, you know, if I'm worth $20 million, $30 million, give them $15 million each and say, here's what I'm giving you. I'm old now and, you know, I'm going to move to Florida. I would never do that. I think this is where you really need to, like, surround yourself with people advising you on how to do it, whether you're going to do it through a trust, whether you're going to disperse money to them slowly. You know, I know families who the father won't give to the son. He'll put everything in the grandson's name, and the grandson can only get to it when he's 21. So it's like they go over a generation, which is crazy. So it all depends on, you know, what the end goal is. But once again, when we're gone from God's green earth, like, realistically, whatever happens, whether it's with your kids or my kids, you really don't have any control. We're gone.
No, you don't.
You know, like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And then whatever I build today, like, say I hand my son and daughter like 50 properties, you know, and they're all paid off and they're positive cash flowing and they're worth like $20 million. My son might be smart, but his son might be a moron.
Yeah.
You know, so at the end of the day, it all depends. It also depends on who your kids marry.
Yep.
Who is my son going to marry? Is he going to marry a gold digger? Think about it. That's a good song too.
Someone eventually down the line is going to marry a gold digger.
100%.
You know,
100%. And the funny thing is as the generations, as long as there's no major loss, if you're consistently building through generations, then, you know, the generational wealth you're still gonna have it. That's what's happening in India. All the families, like, for example, my family, they have acres and acres of land close to major cities because my great-great-great-grandfather bought that land. He harvested that land because we come from farmers. But now my dad's like, yeah, there's like X amount of square feet in our village and there's X amount in the city, and I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, can we go back and sell it so we could bring the money here? Because me and my brother are not going back to India, and we're not going to live there, and we're never going to build a house there. So, like, and when you're gone, my cousins might be like, you're not getting this. You know, when I go back, it happens in every culture, not only Indians. It happened to my buddy. He's Greek. He went back home and his cousins were like, yeah, you don't have the right to touch this, even though it was your father's, because he moved to Canada and he had businesses there. So, I mean, as the generations go and you're constantly building, I think that, generational wealth, it's going to happen kind of organically. But
and do you think? So here's another question for you that I just thought of.
Yeah.
What motivates you more, or what motivates, let's say, people in your position? Your legacy, or are you actually trying to? You want to help take care of the future generations of the Singhs? Because the legacy is a big part of it, in particular for men. They want to be remembered when they're gone. They want to be remembered for the things they did. And sometimes it's good in one way, because yes, it ends up like money can help future generations. But on the other side, it's almost like it's almost selfish in a way. Yeah. And I want to have this too. I want to be remembered when I'm gone. Yeah. Everyone wants to be remembered when they're gone.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like that legacy question. It's almost like, well, I want to have a legacy. It's almost like a selfish motivation. So or is it a bit of both?
Well, if that sign stays out there, your grandchildren will be on the Highway 40 being like, our grandfather stared that place, or a great.
And when I think about that, though, it's like it's selfish. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's a selfish thought.
So I don't think it's selfish, because what happens is, to answer your question, for me, legacy is more important. My responsibility is not taking care of making sure that my son's kids or his grandchildren will make sure that they're able to buy a house in Montreal. I'll be gone. Like, that's my son's responsibility, his son's responsibility, and so on and so forth. So it's not my responsibility to do that, because I had to start from scratch. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's legacy. And I actually joke about this to my kids all the time. I always say to them, when I'm gone, you better have a painting of me, like on an armchair, and be like, yeah, so that's, old man Singh right there. And he's the one who started this whole real estate empire. Like, I'm being serious. People laugh.
I believe you, yeah.
Yeah, I told my son, I said, whether it's in the office or your home, one or the other, you better remember me like that. And
I guess in a way it's kind of like, you hope to instill good values with your children, and kind of it's like the North Star, to kind of guide the family for future generations and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So
I didn't plan this podcast to go here, by the way. But
it's interesting because I'm glad you asked it, because I always bounce ideas back and forth with my wife about generational wealth, and my wife is like anti-generational wealth. Yeah, she always says to me, she goes, nope. Not
because she thinks it's going to create entitlement with the future generations.
Exactly. She doesn't want entitlement in them now, and they're 12 and 10. So she'll say, nope, not happening. We're going to leave them with what they need. And other than that, you and I are going to the Maldives, and you and I are going to Greece, and we're going to Italy. And she wants to travel, and she wants to enjoy her life until her last day on earth. I agree with her, but I also do think that I would like to see my kids have an easier time in this world than I did.
I think it's more of a guy thing to want to create the legacy.
Yes.
I don't know why, something in our brains.
Well, I think it's also because, lineage, family lineage.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah, your name, your legacy. Yeah. So I think it's also that.
I think that legacy, it's like what motivates people when they get to the end of their lives. I'll just take a perfect example. Like, this isn't an endorsement for Trump, but I just think what he's actually trying to do now, whether you agree with him or not, I think what he's trying to do right now, I think he actually has good intentions, and he's actually he wants to leave a legacy behind, and he wants to be the guy that broke the establishment. He wants to give America back to the people. I honestly think that's what motivates him, and it just kind of ties into like what men, I can't speak for women because I'm not a woman, but it's like this is an important thing for men. What is life about, and what do you want to leave? What in the books, or at least in the books of your family and stuff like that. And it's kind of, and just back to at the beginning what we're talking about. If you're working just for the sake of money, you're not going to be happy. You're going to live a very unfulfilled life.
Shallow.
Very shallow.
Yeah.
And you're posting shit on Instagram. Like anyone who's going to like those photos, they don't know you. They don't care about you. Yeah. And it's a very, people need to find purpose in life. It's different for everybody, but, Instagram's not it.
Yeah, of course. And it's funny because speaking of Instagram, some people use the fire emoji to say like, oh, this is great. Like that sign outside your building looks really cool. Yeah. And like you're on fire, Curtis, keep killing it. Yeah. And the other use the fire emoji because there's a fire burning inside them. Yeah. And they can't stand that you are where you are.
Yeah.
There's two sides to social media. There's the ones that'll like your shit, watch your shit, and comment on your shit. because they actually like it. And then there's the ones that'll do the same, but they're just waiting for
different motives.
Yeah. And they're also going to be the ones clapping if anything happens. So like if you know you have hard days in business, or you're not doing as well as you used to, because I find that with social media there's a lot of jealousy in the world too. Everyone constantly lives with this notion in their head that they are not where they should be, in a different place with someone else doing something else rather than what they're currently doing. If I'm scrolling on social media right now and I see one of my friends is on vacation, the other friend is golfing, another friend is like listing a $7 million property in Westmount, I'm sitting here going, shit, I should be working, I should be golfing, I shouldn't be here. And that's what's happening with society. People don't want to be where they currently are. I go to the gym and I don't see people working out. I see people between sets on their phone scrolling. So my trainer tells me, leave your phone outside of the gym. Don't bring it into the gym. And if you want to take a photo or a video for anything else, you're going to do it afterwards. And when he takes videos of me working out, he does it on his phone. So like no talking about nothing not working out related for 45 minutes and no phone. It's like you're in the zone, you know? And some golf courses have the same rules too, right?
Yeah, well, they're not strict at Beaconsfield, but you're not supposed to have a cell phone on you.
You're not supposed to have a cell phone. You're right.
And also too, it just makes life a little bit more enjoyable. But
of course.
I'll just here before we wrap up, I'll just end on. I have one last question for you. So, would you say that this is also a typical trait I find that a lot of successful entrepreneurs have? It's that it's kind of a little bit cliche, but like a chip on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Would you say that you're a person who has a chip on their shoulder, not necessarily in a negative way, but you know, when you go to meetings and you basically like you look at people or you look at your competitors, you go, "Oh, I'll show you."
Yeah.
Do you kind of approach your work with that attitude?
I am an extremely competitive person. Extremely.
Yeah.
I'm not competitive in golf because golf for me is a very enjoyable sport, and I don't even like keeping score. Like I just go out there and I enjoy, and I want to play around and smoke a cigar and have fun. But I'm an extremely competitive person when it comes to sports in general. Like my hockey league that I play in, I'm the loudest guy on the bench. I'm intense, you know. Like I'll even you know trash talk. I'm
That's
just
so
like,
fun trash talking.
Yeah, it is fun. I'm just that guy. And then when it comes to work, I do have a chip on my shoulder, and I'm constantly wanting to be the best. And for me, it's very simple. I don't compete with anyone. I don't care what other brokers are doing in my agency or outside of my agency. I don't care. They could do better than me. They could do worse than me. They could be the same of me. My competition is me. It's who I was yesterday. It's how much money I made last year. It's how many transactions I did the year before. It's how many developers I have relationships with. If I sold 30 condos at a project that launched like Tour des Canadiens or 40, the next project that launches, I want to do 50. You know, I compete with myself. The reason I do that is because I don't like taking my energy and wasting it on other people. And that's one of the reasons why I've taken a step back from social media, and I have someone taking care of my social media on my behalf, and I don't have it on my phone anymore. So
you feel like that's been a net benefit for your career?
I think that's been a net benefit. There's been so many other changes I've made to my personal life that I've been able to like just excel. You know, whether it's getting up earlier, not drinking, you know, working out more, you know, finding a life coach, finding a business coach. There's so many variables. And like I said earlier, anything you do, if you think you're doing enough, you're still not doing enough. The minute you want to get from point A to point B and you want to excel in your craft, you got to have that Mamba mentality. You got to be Kobe. You got to be Jordan, you know? He used to shoot, I think Michael Jordan used to shoot after every practice 100 or 150 jump shots.
Something crazy.
Yeah. And then like, and then like leave, like I'll give you an example. When I play a round of 18 holes, I'm tired. When I leave the golf course, I don't want to do anything. I just want to go home and hang out. I was just talking to my buddy the other day. I said, guys on the PGA Tour work out. They go to the driving range for an hour. They play 18 holes. Then they go back to the driving range. And then they're like kind of like done for the day until their next round.
That's why Tiger Woods was Tiger Woods.
Exactly.
And that's why he had talent. Yes. He had a good mindset. Yes. But he also worked harder than anyone else.
You have to work harder. You have to get out there, and you need to, if you think that you're going to, you know, if you're in real estate and you think you're going to get 10 listings, you need to aim to get 20 or 30.
And I think also too, what people need to understand is that when you zone in on something like this, like when you really want to zone in on your career, I think people, and this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs and just people in general don't talk about, is you have to accept the fact that some of your relationships are going to suffer. And there was a really great question that actually Patrick Bet-David asked Kobe when he interviewed him before he died, obviously. And because Kobe was Kobe, one of the questions he asked was, because of your drive and because you work so hard, did some of your relationships suffer? And Kobe looked at me, he's like, of course.
100%.
And there's a sacrifice involved in, if you want to be successful, there are sacrifices to make. And I think a lot of people aren't ready or willing, and they never will be willing to make those sacrifices. And that's fine. That's fine. But if you actually want to zone in and take your career, take your life, whatever it is, to the next level, you need to make sacrifices. And a lot of people are they care way too much about short-term pleasures as opposed to looking at the bigger picture and looking down the line.
100%.
Like legacy, your children, your career and stuff like that. So
social media is also the cause of that.
Yeah, big time.
Immediate gratification. Go pop bottles of $1,500 tequila rather than, look at where you should be investing your money.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it.
Yes.
Or would you like to add anything else, Raymond?
Nothing. Honestly, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, likewise, man.
And, I met you for the first time a few months ago when you were on our podcast. And right away I was like, this is a likable guy.
Yeah.
He's, our generation, and that's the beauty. It's people like you that are trailblazing.
Yeah.
Whether it's, the way we're doing things in real estate, the way you're doing them with insurance. Yeah. The way I see other entrepreneurs doing it in Montreal in different, categories or types of business. You're kind of trailblazing. You're doing things differently.
Trying to.
Yeah, and which we love. And then the beauty is I'm a believer of we're all going to grow together. And then
I totally agree.
We're all going to be on the golf course as like 60-year-olds being like, hey, remember 20 years ago I came to your office and you had that office on TransCanada? Yeah. So because I used to hear everyone else doing that, including my dad. So it's like we're all coming up together and this is the next generation.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time, Raymond.
Thank you.